And he just started sobbing and said, I didn't want to do it. And I just realized there are places on planet Earth where there are 15-year-old men, young men, that have to deal with that kind of a decision. And that's not fair. All of my free time, all of my spare money, and go to battle against that. You know, that's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. And then we let God direct, and we go to work.
Well, we're here with Peter Jensen. Welcome.
Thank you.
Peter, I hear that you have a bachelor's in political science and a master's in foreign relations. Tell me about your education.
So I got home from a 2-year mission in England and started to go to a school in Utah State University, started taking a variety of classes and was drawn to, I've always loved politics, but I also love international relations. So that degree, you could specialize, you could go pre-law, you could do a number of things, but I focused on politics and I focused on international relations. I loved studying other countries' constitutions and other countries, the way that they organize themselves. And then joined the Air Force, and the Air Force told me that I was more than, they wanted me to go get a master's degree, so I took one in a master's in international relations, which again I loved. I really enjoyed it. Took some phenomenal classes. We read Thucydides, the history of the Peloponnesian Wars in that class, and that was wonderful. But I've always loved studying the politics and the cultures, but more so how different countries structure themselves based on all of the variety of inputs that create a culture, and the geography of that location has a play on how you would organize a constitution. And I've always found that very fascinating.
I understand you served in the U.S. military as an intelligence officer. How did your deployments to Iraq and Bosnia help you to appreciate the principles of freedom?
Yeah, it was such a good time. Like I know when you hear the intelligence officer, you think of cloak and dagger, you think of CIA, stuff like that. I had nothing to do with that. My job was simply to just study and to be aware of the capabilities of other air forces around the world. I was in the Air Force, and so that was my job. It's just to keep up to date with aviation technology that was around the world. So much fun. I really enjoyed it. I deployed 2003 to Bosnia, former Yugoslavia, and honestly, that was just, I really enjoyed that opportunity to serve and to see that part of Europe. A lot of good memories, a lot of good friends that I got from that. And then Iraq, I went there twice, once in Baghdad and then once up into Mosul. And you're just on the front lines of watching this public virtue, this people giving to their country. Like there's something really wonderful about serving in the military where people have this higher sense of cause. It's a higher mission. You come together. But it was one of those where it was that aspect of it. I do remember up in Mosul, we had my job was simply to process information as people were brought in from surrounding areas into the detention facility. We would take information and process it to gather intelligence, right? To see if we could make some connections, see what we could do with that. And it was after the horrific treatment in the Abu Ghraib prisons, and so there was a lot of rules about how we could interact with the detainees, and I didn't really ever interact with them on a personal level, but I got to be one of my colleagues over there was one of the interrogators that would talk to him, and he would always just say, really the best way for most detainees is you ask them, you give them a Coke, give them a burger, and you just chat. And most of them aren't hard, fast terrorists. They'll tell you what's going on. There was no need for enhanced interrogation techniques or anything like that. But he told me this story, and I never met this young man. He's 15, 16, 14, right in that range. So I've never met him, but it was that that instance in my life where kind of you just have one of those life-shifting paradigm vision changes. I could have said that a little bit better. You have a paradigm shift, right? And but I never met him. It's such an interesting thing to think about. But I was talking to this interrogator, and he said there was this young man that had been brought in, and he had been caught basically with a cell phone in his hand, and they traced the number, and it was a detonator, right? Like a detonator for an IED, an improvised explosive device. So that's how they would dial the phone number, and then the phone number would actually detonate this charge. And I don't remember it. I know it wounded U.S. soldiers. It might have killed. But I don't remember for sure. But they caught him red-handed, so it's a clear-cut case, right? Like black and white. There's no doubt he's guilty. He's got the cell phone in his hand. They rolled him up. So they brought him in, and my colleague, the interrogator, started asking him, you know, why did you do it? Why did you do this to American soldiers? We're here to help. We really genuinely want to help this country. And I can attest that was true. We were there. We genuinely, on individual level, on the ground, we did want to help. And he said as the interrogation went on, suddenly this young man just broke down into tears. And he just started sobbing and said, I didn't want to do it. He said, I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. And so he asked him a follow-up question. He said, well, you know, why did you do it? And he said 2 days earlier, Al-Qaeda had come through their village, and they gave him that cell phone, and they said, you're going to be here at this time, at this place, and you're going to detonate it, or we'll come back and kill your family. And I just realized there are places on planet Earth where there are 15-year-old men, young men, that have to deal with that kind of a decision. And that's not fair. Like, there's something inherently evil, inherently wrong in a society that would require a young man to come to terms with that kind of a decision at that age. And so that's when I kind of said I loved my time in the military, and I stayed in the reserves, but I wanted to create and do something to promote a societal structure that would offer freedom and that would save 15-year-old young men from ever having to make that kind of a decision again. And so that's kind of if you were to ask me at the core level, the why, that is why there is inherent evil in this world, and that we need to do something to keep those kind of decisions from being forced upon young men, and then you think about young women around the world that are selling their bodies into slavery, sex slavery, things like that. This world is still very, very evil in many, many areas. And if there's not some part of you that says, I will give up all of my free time, all of my spare money, and go to battle against that, you know, that's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. And then we let God direct, and we go to work. Focus on those areas of a society that contribute deeply to freedom. Like, a country can only be free if you have ordered your own soul. This is that there's such a high degree, high trust, high belief in God. That's one of the key things. I mean, what if the next Elon Musk is living in Uyo, Nigeria right now?